in West Virginia at 2:30 p.m. last Saturday, a 62-year-old Rodney Bruce Black shot and killed two brothers, Garrett and Carl Hopkins, age 60 and 61 respectively. They came from the Milton area. Rodney Black claimed that the two were illegally trespassing on his property and admitted that he made no attempt to warn them or call 911 before shots were fired out. The two brothers were actually checking out Garrick's newly purchased property, which he had intended to build a new home on a couple weeks later. He was showing his brother around his new property that neighbored Black's. And the outbuilding, there was a shed, there was a little outbuilding where the two were shot. And the outbuilding in question was actually on Hopkins' property and contained no possessions of Black's whatsoever. However, an arsenal of weapons and a stockpile of ammunition was also found in Black's home, which were then confiscated by deputies. Neighbors told news reporters at the scene that her children had just crossed that property earlier that day, of course reflecting on the possibility that her children could have easily been the ones that were shot and killed without warning that day. Black told police that he thought that the two men were trespassing on his property and breaking into a shed that Black mistakenly thought that he owned. He grabbed a rifle and fired once at both men, and both men died at the scene. He made no attempt to revive them or attempt first aid, and he is currently being held without bond in the Western Regional Jail. Preliminary hearing is set for February 4th. Oh, did I forget to mention, both of the victims were Black, but race had nothing to do with it, I'm sure. So what do you guys think? What's your opinion on this story so far?
No, of course, race had nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it
Right.
whatsoever. Obviously, if it were a white person that was trying to jiggle the handle or whatever to get into a shed, obviously this guy would still just have no second thought, just bam, bam, right through the window, no problem, not even calling not even calling 911 to say, hey, there's somebody suspicious on my property, I think they're trying to get into my stuff. And not even trying to go and, check to see if they're fine. No, you're not supposed to shoot first and ask questions later. I mean, I don't think that's the way that it should be. And I know we've had this argument before, Sean, with the radios and the property and being able to protect your property, right? But it wasn't even his property. And that's kind of the big problem here.
I mean, the radios was a different issue of somebody robbing you on the spot and you chasing him down. Like, this guy, like, he just shot them without warning. Like, we've been over this before, that I think that the warning shot is something that is just gone in America now, and I think that's totally ridiculous.
That's because the warning shot is illegal.
But I get that, right? Because there's a case in Long Island of some guy who fired 2 warning shots into his lawn, and he got arrested, and then the police chief stupidly goes out and says, well, if he would have shot the criminals, then he would have been perfectly fine. So I get, like, the warning shot needs to be legalized in some way and recommended. But these guys weren't doing anything wrong. They were on their own property. And like, this guy, he just shot him, and, he was, we can assume that he might have been racist, but at least he got arrested. This isn't one of those, like, awful stories where they let him go, and they're like, well, he was in your area and all that. But I have one little anecdote to add to this. When this story was sent to me, I misread it as that he shot 2 people over the poverty line. So I kept misreading property as poverty. So the entire time I was reading this story, I was like, this makes no sense. Were they arguing over it or whatever? So I just want to throw that in there.
Well, when I first read the story, I pictured what I imagined was that 2 brothers had gone to their property to check it out late at night, and that they were like fiddling with the shed like late at night at like 2 in the morning or something like that, and they just got it in their heads, hey, you want to come check out my new property that I just bought, and that I mean, still totally unacceptable. Totally unacceptable. But at least gave the guy maybe some inkling of an actual reason to think, oh, two guys outside in the middle of the night, next to a property that I think is mine for some reason, might have some reason to, put some alarms off in your head. But then I read that it was 2:30 in the afternoon, and you're like, what?
Well,
I mean, I'm sure if the two guys were white, that he would have just shot two white guys right out of his freaking window at 2:30 in the afternoon. I mean, he might have, but I'd bet money that he wouldn't.
I tend to agree there too. I feel like race was an element. We can speculate on that all day, but regardless of whether or not race was an element, like one thing we can talk about is what we do know was undeniably wrong here. You did mention, he thought it was his property for some reason. There is a reason. It was his property at one point in time. His family used to own this property and no longer did. I guess somehow he was not brought into that business transaction. I just kind of want to push back against Sean. Like this isn't really different than the radio example that we went to. This is why, at least again, not necessarily that it's unconstitutional, but that it's stupid, to immediately be willing to escalate to deadly force or whatever and to take matters into your own hand. Like we've got to be a nation of laws, not a nation of vigilantism. Like, okay, you have a right to defend your property or whatever, but sometimes it's not your property, right? Maybe sometimes it's not your car getting the radio stolen out of it, whatever. Maybe somebody's, Henry Louis Gates Jr., wasn't trying to break into anybody's property, was trying to break into his own property. Thankfully, someone called the police and didn't try to take matters into their own hands and defend property there. I get, Sean, you did make a very compelling argument that, constitutionally you have a right to, either, retain, reacquire, protect your property. I totally get that. But morally, ethically, property and human life are not on equal grounds. So you want to protect your property. I mean, it's the freaking 21st century. If you see someone trespassing, take their picture with your cell phone camera that virtually everyone in America has, give it to the police, and let laws do what laws are supposed to do. And the thing too here is, the man, I'm going to be the gun guy again. Like, the man grabbed a rifle. The story mentions that this is a first degree murder charge. We kind of talked about that, last week, about manslaughter versus second degree versus first degree. Like, if you're going to confront somebody and you're worried a situation might escalate, you grab a pistol because you can conceal it and draw it if need be. If you go for a rifle, you are there with the intention to either kill or immediately deter them from what they're doing. And in this case, clearly he went there with the intent to kill. This guy wanted to kill these folks. He didn't care about what the facts were.
That's a very good point, and I like that you pointed that out, because also I wanted to point out that only 2 shots were fired. I mean, obviously this guy was a really good shot. That's not a compliment or anything, but it's just a fact that obviously this guy was a really good shot and he was aiming to kill.
Wait, did he shoot them from the window?
That's what it said, yeah. Yeah,
see, that's why I distinguish this as different from the radio example that we gave before. Because the radio example, it's an active, crime. Like, he broke into your car, you're chasing him, and there's a chance of a physical confrontation. Like, I'm not in favor of you shooting people in the back when they're running away or from the window. Like, I don't want to, speculate. Like, this could be just, a crazy old guy who didn't, realize, and he grabbed his gun because he's a terrible person. But this seems like a neighborly dispute that he was just trying to get one over on. But he shot them from the window. Like, this is not a self-defense case. This is not a defense of your property. They weren't breaking into his house. Like, he could have, yelled. Like, I remember when I saw a kid on my block at, 3 in the morning, not 3 in the afternoon or 2 in the afternoon. And he was and he was banging, and he was checking the car doors because he was trying to steal something from the car. And I just said, hey, like really loud, and that deterred him. So if that guy would have said, hey, then maybe like that would be you don't even have to fire a warning shot. That could be enough deterrence. I think this was like this. I'm speculating, but it might come out later that this was personal, and I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
And here's why I think that this is a racist thing, because older gentleman, right? Older white gentleman, West Virginia, okay, and here he is, just casually putting his gun out the window, 2 shots, boom, boom. It's like he's hunting varmints. That's almost what it makes me think of. Like, I don't want to say that I'm getting into the head of this guy because I could be wrong, but from the way that I see it, the way that it just strikes me is it's like you would think that this guy has the idea of, oh, them damn N-words are on my lawn. They're going to get into my stuff. I'm going to take care of them varmints, those dogs. And that's what it seems like to me. It seems like definitely intent. No warning, no nothing, just I'm going to shoot them varmints. And that's it. That's why I think that it's incredibly racial. And
but
I could be wrong.
The window thing, like, switches me up to murder. Like, this guy's properly charged. I think he's going to get convicted. I think it's a wrap for him. But there's obviously intent. If you're shooting from the window, it's not that you grab the gun in order to deter a situation and it turned out that you were going to shoot somebody. It's that you saw some people, you grabbed the gun, and you intended on killing them. Like, this is as open and shut of a case as there could be. Like, the only thing that he could possibly say is he didn't realize like that he thought they were on his property, but they weren't. So like this is gonna be an easy conviction, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I do want to. Okay, so let me go ahead here and let my regressive side come out. Now that my bleeding heart liberal side has kind of been prevalent during this story. I really don't like the idea of framing this story as a gun violence story, or well, actually it is gun violence. I mean, as a gun issue story, there's always a line in the articles I found about this about how he owned, they use words like arsenal and stuff like that, which one is irrelevant. Like he used one gun to kill these guys, but two, like there's no actual, like there's not an inventory of all the guns he owns, so it could be subjective. And I think whenever you have like somebody walk into a crowded theater with a bag full of weapons, that's a legitimate story to bring up the amount of guns someone was allowed to procure, or someone kills somebody with one gun and 2 shots. Like at that point it seems like we're troll baiting, but that's I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah,
I do think it's sort of a gun issue. I'd just say because not in that sense necessarily, like the number of guns he had or whatever, because it did kind of irritate me that no details were given, like how many guns he had, what kind they were, exactly how many, what was the amount of the stockpile of ammunition that he supposedly had. I wanted more details. But insofar as I think as far as the gun issue, I think it does speak to a need in this country to be more stringent about ensuring that background checks and mental health is a factor in whether or not someone can legally acquire and handle weapons.
No, I totally agree with you there. And the thing, I mean, I don't know if it's because this is a fairly new story. It's really not. It's several days old. So surely these, facts would have come out by now. Like if this guy has a history of like George Zimmerman, like if there's a history of him showing aggressive behavior and stuff like that, then I think you can definitely kind of bring this into the, gun violence debate from those angles.
Right.
But based on, what information we've got so far, to me, like this is less of a gun story and more just of a tragic, horrible thing that's happened, that never should have happened. It's I think if we're going to come at this, from a gun violence angle, it's from I think we should approach it the way we have about, how in this country we seem to be okay with equating property and human life, which to me is a great misalignment of value.
And the thing is the reason I saw the Arsenal thing there too, and Arsenal is like one of those buzzwords that's in certain articles. It's like if you have a bunch of religious people in a big building, like it's automatically a compound whenever they do something wrong because it's just one of those buzzwords. So like that's irrelevant. Like he used 2 bullets, like we said before. And I mean, if somebody raided Jordan's house, they would say that he had a quote unquote arsenal there. So, and he seems like a pretty stand up guy. But the overall point is that this wasn't his property. There was something in one of the articles about how he was unfriendly to another neighbor or something like that, so it might have been a neighbor issue. And like the guy, this is not a self-defense case. It's not self-defense or defense of your property to shoot somebody from a window, like I'm assuming in the back, but like from far enough away that they're not an actual threat to you. Like this is just a guy, and I'm glad he was arrested. Like this would be the most awfulest story ever. This would be literally the new Trayvon Martin story if this guy didn't get arrested immediately. But I'm just glad that he's arrested and all that.
And that's good. Like in all of, we don't want to come across as sanctimonious liberals. I think I'm glad Sean keeps pointing that out. Like we do need to recognize like justice is being, at least seems to be, be done here. Like not only has he been arrested, he's been charged with 1st-degree murder for both of the men he killed. So yeah, I mean, we're not here to so much gripe about justice not being done as we are to just, identify a problem. I think at least that's kind of what I feel like our role in this story is.
I agree.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to throw in one more thing. My little personal opinion. I think this does, stories like these kind of speak to the mindset that we have here as Americans when we put the value of our property over the value of other people's lives. And, also our sort of fascination with, using those weapons to defend it. Like this guy, I'm pretty sure and I know I'm speculating again. I'm doing a really good job at speculation today. It just makes me think that this guy was just like, he couldn't wait to do this. Like he couldn't wait. Like, oh, it's open season. Oh, look at them. That we own that property, at one point. My family owned this property. I'm gonna go and defend it.
That's actually, you know what? Like, I'm gonna do some speculation. I want more. I want so much more information about this story. Like, because there's that line about his family used to own this property and doesn't anymore. I want to know, like, was there a dispute over the selling of this property? Like, I want that backstory. Like, did this guy did he know these gentlemen he shot? And, was he mad that they had the property? Like, again, that's total speculation. I haven't seen anything hint at that.
I mean, he's an old guy. He could have had Alzheimer's and not remembered that this property was out of his possession. There's like so much information we don't know about this story.